Welcome to Huxley College of the Environment's graduation celebration of our 42nd cohort of students who have, are, or hopefully soon will be, completing their degrees. I just spent an entire quarter teaching a capstone course where I told the students no notes, and here I have, 40 pages or so. So, I'm going to employ a rhetorical device where I ask a question and answer it. Breaks up the tedium, makes me look smarter. I'll begin with the students. So why are you here? Because you heard the word celebration. And who doesn't want to be part of a celebration? It just sounds so much more appealing than just calling it graduation. Who would want to come to something called graduation celebration? In that light, I think maybe we should call it finals week celebration. People would be a lot less grumpy. So what does graduation celebration mean? Well, number one, no one has been foolish enough to invest me with any authority whatsoever to provide or confer upon you all the rights and privileges, etc., of any type of official recognition. What I can give you is my heartfelt good job, and congratulations on behalf of all the faculty and staff at Huxley. Number two, you will not get a fall leather folder, bereft of any diploma, whatever risk that causes so that you don't get one, but what you will get is a tree. If you nurture and, if you nurture and love that tree, for the next 40 years, I suppose you could cut it down, make some paper, and create a diploma or certificate or something. But that would be ironic. You won't get platitudes or instructions or reflections from some old guy, being me, on how to live your life. You've done a much better job than I did at your age, and keep doing that. I respect that. You won't be subject to the oddly worded and less than inspirational alma mater. What you will get is the opportunity to be footloose, Snoopy style, during our musical interlude. And finally, you'll have the opportunity to hear from a most distinguished Huxley alumnus on matters that are relevant to all of us today and right here. So, parents, family, and friends, why are you here? Particularly those parents who have been told that this is the one and only official graduation by a son or daughter who did not want to be encumbered by wearing a black cap and gown, but preferred to flaunt a keen sense of fashion derived from a recent REI yard sale. I am completely invested with the authority to maintain that ruse. But on the other hand, you have to adapt and expect something a little bit different. Students, back to you, because it is about you. Why are all the rest of us here? Because you are our pride and joy. You are exceptional because somewhere inside, perhaps not even consciously, you recognize that the concept of the greater good is an ideal that doesn't just happen. It requires leadership, inspiration, imagination, dedication, and recognitions that sometimes we have to sacrifice what we want to do for what we need to do to ensure that the planet that we live on will provide for us and all that follow in a sustainable fashion. So what do we expect of you? All of us. We expect that you will continue with your highest aspirations to get a seasonal, temporary, 6 to 8 month job, to work 60 hours a week, to save every bit of money that you can so that you can enjoy a month or two during winter in Thailand, India, Nepal, Argentina, New Zealand, Chile, all the places I've never been, and that you'll embrace and learn from that which is different than you. But at some point in the next few years, we also expect that you will take your place as appropriate to your passion, your knowledge, and your skills among the 4,000 Huxley graduates that precede you and take on the role of identifying and solving those environmental challenges that we are faced with every day. You're required to send occasional postcards, and you have until you're age 30. If you're already age 30, too bad. Sorry. You can skip the travel part. So the co-founder of Huxley, Dr. Jerry Flora, passed away at the end in December, the end of 2013. As he explained it, he co-authored the proposal to establish this first college of the environment in the country. And serendipitously, he was sequentially promoted to the position that was required a signature on the proposal, until the point he became president of the university and put the flourishing signature on there that established this college. You are not serendipitously here. You are not here by luck. You are here by design. You came here for a purpose. Rather than pursuing that easy path that perhaps you have roommates or friends, they went down the common majors, psychology, English, biology, or maybe those that took the fewest credits, and I'm not going to say you know what they are. You took a more challenging route to engage in confronting the challenges that we as citizens of the earth must face. In that way alone, you are exceptional. So why am I here? It's a darn good question. I should be sitting down in the second row, second seat in, as I have for the last 19 years. As I best understand it, our dean, Dr. Stephen Hollenhorst, suddenly and recently came to recognize that he had 2 children graduating on the same day that our graduation celebration was occurring. He put together a list of his top candidates to take over his role here, and went down the list, and successfully each one of them said that they were in the band and therefore could not perform this duty. Then he had to go to faculty photo roster. He put my name to a face and called me in his office, and I must have gone into some fugue state where I nodded my head and said I'd do this. So here I am. Yeah. My name is Leo Bodensteiner. I teach in environmental science. I've been at Huxley since 1994. I expect that the band has expanded to orchestral size at this point based on the number of people on the list. So, we're going to talk about some of the founders of Huxley and some of the, what do we call they are the base of the institution that this year are taking on retirement. In my 20 years at Huxley, I don't recall that anyone has left. Any of my fully employed colleagues have ever left here, except by retirement. There's a reason for that. I'm not sure. There's a multitude of reasons probably. The reason of departure seems to be sort of a tug of war between pursuing environmental interests outside the university and the constraints that the university provides. 2 people made that decision to pursue those, well, they'll still be involved in Huxley, but to pursue those outside interests. After 53 years at Western, Dr. Debnath Mukherjee, teacher and mentor extraordinaire, is retiring. Deb has been sharing his expertise in urban geography and planning longer than, well, you can fill in a deity or geological formation or whatever. But for a while, Deb continues, will have an office and will continue doing his research here at Huxley, but also pursuing his other interests. Is Deb here? Okay. Dr. John Miles. John was employed in the first cohort of teachers at Huxley, way back in 1969, when it was established. Along the way, he founded the Outdoor Center, the Environmental Education Program, and the national award-winning Planet magazine. I expect that John will continue his work with the graduate program, as well as you probably find him on the top of various mountains back in the Cascades any day of the year. So these 2 professors exemplify the dedication to teaching, learning, studying, and serving that inspire us all. John, I see you're here. So John, could you stand up? And, I hope to see him mountain biking more often. We also bid fondue to one staff member, Ms. Diane Peterson, who ran the environmental science office and kept the chair and other faculty out of mischief for more than 20 years. She retired in February. And I don't believe Diane is here, but much thanks to her. They've been an integral part of our Huxley community, founding members. And some acknowledgments. This wouldn't happen without the work of a lot of people. The Huxley Community Affairs Committee has been instrumental. Their names are in the back of your programs, as well as the staff members. You know them: Jen Vanderweyden, Mary Morris, Kathy Patrick, Ed Weber, Rose Kopczynski, and I think that's it. And then a number of students that will be helping with trees and other things, and you saw them at the door.
Hello, everyone. When I was told that I was going to receive this award, I felt so incredibly honored. And then I was told that I would have to speak in front of 1,000 people. And then came the fear, and I immediately began to plot my escape. Isn't there someone else who can do it? Or can't we just Skype it? But then I realized that this is yet another opportunity for Huxley College to challenge me to do something I've never done before, even if I was a little terrified. And when you think about it, isn't that what our Huxley experience has been all about? Testing ourselves and taking on new challenges? Over the past few years, we've been challenged in countless ways. We've all been shaken from our comfort zones. But as someone once said, a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. Growth requires struggle, and great deeds are not accomplished easily. I think that Huxley students understand this more than most. Not only have we overcome challenges common to every college student, but we have continued the Huxley tradition of standing up for what's right, no matter who gets in our way. We have been at the forefront of numerous movements on campus, in the community, and beyond. We collaborated with Fairhaven on the Bottled Water Free Initiative, which not only became a platform for educating the public about the social and environmental implications surrounding the privatization of water, but also made Western the largest college in the state to end the sale of bottled water. We are also helping to repel the massive corporate interests that are intent on setting up a coal terminal at Cherry Point. In doing so, we're not helping to just preserve this little slice of the Washington coast, but we're defending the front lines on the global fight against climate change. We have even taken on our own university by challenging the administration to live up to its principles of sustainability and social justice and dissolve its investments in fossil fuels. Yep, we are some of the most dedicated and tenacious people on campus. Now, to celebrate our achievements, I would like everyone to stand up for me. Excellent. Okay, last year's Huxley Award recipient, Seth Norrell Bader, did something I think should become a Huxley tradition. So when I count to 3, we are going to howl at the moon. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Nice. That was so Huxley. Good job. That felt good. All right. I remember the first time I brought my mom to campus. We were sitting in front of Arts and Hall, and my mom asked me, "Why is that girl barefooted?" And I replied, "Oh, she goes to Huxley." A few minutes later, another student rode past us on his bike, while singing at the top of his lungs and banging on a hand drum. Fairhaven. I'm just curious, are there any shoeless students in the crowd today? No? No? Wait, we got it. Nice. I think that's going to come later. We came to Huxley as young idealists, confident in our ability to make a difference in the world. And then the full gravity and precariousness of our situation on Earth set in. With each additional class that we took, problems seemed to pile on top of problems. I don't know about the rest of you, but at times I'd ask myself, what could I possibly do to fix this mess? It just seemed so hopeless, especially after taking oceanography. But here we are today. We didn't give up. We all know we're fighting an uphill battle, but whether or not we're fighting a winning battle, the important part is that we fight. We all understand the immensity of the challenges we face, but this is my challenge to you. Never get comfortable. Keep moving forward, keep challenging yourselves, keep taking risks, keep growing, and keep fighting. And when the inevitable challenges seem too massive to overcome and you find yourself wanting to give up, just ask yourself, what do I really have to lose? And when you think about it, we have far more to lose if you do nothing. Good luck, Huxley alums. Let's do this.
You might be a little nervous to see two banjos out here. You're totally justified in that, but you should be grateful that our bagpipist is on vacation.
Hold on a second here. Smile. This is by far the biggest group we ever played in. I'll kick it off. We have 7 more songs still to do.
Thank you all for coming up. Grads are welcome up here. You have our heartfelt congratulations. And as usual with the dancing, we've noticed that in the past, the study students help out the science students a little bit on the dancing, all right? There's no news I can borrow. Landlord giving all the news and the rent comes due tomorrow. There's lots of money in the bank, they say that's where they keep it. Not only wouldn't they lend me some, but they wouldn't let me see it. So pick away on the old banjo and keep the guitar strumming. Put more water in the soup, there's better times are coming. If only I would let her. She's quite strong as any ox, and she looks a good deal better. I didn't kiss Mary Lou but once, and then I had to leave her. Maybe my God, I get so hot, I start burning fever. So pick away on the old banjo, keep the guitar strumming. Put more water in the soup, there's better times coming. David! Chase the hens, he kept getting thinner. I was afraid he'd starve himself, so I brought him in for dinner. That cotton crop is really full, the weeds are really growing. I need a woman pretty bad to help me get going. So pick away on the old banjo and keep the guitar strumming. Put more water in the soup, there's better times coming. Hey, pick away on the old banjo, keep the guitar strumming. Put more water in the soup, there's a better time coming. Woo! your thing, and just I don't like the students behind me, or I can't see what they're doing.
One more?
Let's do one more for you. Well, come along, little children, come along, while the moon is shining bright. Get on board down the river, gonna raise it, ruckus, United Jones. Well, now, Miss, don't promise me. Oh, that when she dies, she's gonna set me free. She lived so long that her head got bald. And I found out the killer with a white oak mall. Well, come along, let's come along, while the moon is shining bright. Get on board, down the river, gonna raise it, ruckus, unite. Hello, David. My miss got mad at me. Oh, now I'm drinking Indian tea. And she's good and she's bad. Oh, she's evil like devil when she gets mad. Come along, while the moon is shining bright. Get all going down the river, gonna raise it, ruckus tonight. Come on, John. Well, come along, let's just come along, while the moon is shining bright. Get on board and down the river, gonna raise it, ruckus tonight. Raise it, ruckus, raise it, ruckus, raise it, ruckus tonight. Get on board and down the river, gonna raise it, ruckus tonight. Congrats to the grads!
This year, we have Roberta Riley, a Huxley graduate from 1982. She went on from Western to earn a law degree. She fought leukemia in her 30s. She left private practice, went to Planned Parenthood. She argued and won a landmark federal court decision that prompted American companies to cover prescription contraception in worker health plans. In 2001, Ms. Magazine named her one of their Women of the Year. Since leaving Planned Parenthood in 2008, she served as a communications consultant for a variety of nonprofit advocacy organizations, including VoteHealthcare.org, Main Street Alliance, and Northwest Health Law Advocates. From 2010 to 2012, she has worked as the project director for the United Nations World at 7 Billion project. And so please welcome Roberta Riley.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, distinguished faculty, Dean Hollenhorst in absentia, family, staff, parents, and most of all, thank you, class of 2014. I can only assume I'm here today because of my accomplishments in sex law. Yes, you heard that, sex law. So, parents, watch out. Mature themes will soon follow. Parental guidance is suggested, and if that makes you uncomfortable, bolt now or forever hold your peace. I did see a few young children in the crowd, and kids, this will be a great evening, the perfect evening, for you to ask your parents a few questions, especially those questions that you may have tried to get answers to before, only to see that your parents got kind of red in the face and flustered and started talking in code and then left the room or something. So that would be a good time to follow up on that. You are entitled to honest answers. So, but before I go down that path, I just want to say how proud I am to be a graduate of Huxley. And let me tell you, it was a much smaller school in 1982 when I graduated. This is really phenomenal. One of the big reasons I'm proud is that at Huxley, we were talking about carbon footprints decades before anybody else. And, in fact, I have a kind of a fond Huxley memory. It was the winter of my junior year, and the powder was just dumping up at Mount Baker. And I lived out in Burnham Wood in an apartment, and my boyfriend lived in an apartment not far from there. And one Sunday morning, he showed up at my door, his skis and his ski boots in a grocery cart that he'd just kind of borrowed from Hagen, and I put my skis and my old boots in that cart, and we wheeled all the way from Burnham Wood to the back of Miller Hall, where we caught the ski bus. And on the way, right around when we passed Arnson Hall, he said to me, "Geez, Robbie, just think about it. If somebody tries to arrest us, this will be a really good test of whether you're ready for law school. You can just bat your eyes at them and say, 'But officer, we're not stealing. We're just borrowing in order to save on our carbon footprints.'" And of course, never mind the fact we didn't own an automobile. But those were the days before carbon auditors existed. And now you are graduating in an era when there's a whole new class of professionals out there called carbon auditors, literally. And that is because the world has actually started paying attention. And today, analysts are projecting that the world carbon markets, where carbon emissions are bought and sold every single day throughout the world, that market is projected to reach $87 billion this year. That's phenomenal. And that will create good jobs for some of you proud graduates here today, and we want that. Okay, it's time for the sex law part, okay? The big question that might be burning in your minds is, how did a nice girl like me, a nice girl from Ballard High School, wind up in sex law? Well, it really did start right here at Huxley. And it started in a class called, it was pollution. It was the pollution class. It was taught by Ruth Weiner. She was one of only 2 female professors I had in my entire college career. And she was tough as nails. That woman, she would get up there at the chalkboard and she would be cranking out these equations, emissions rates and parts per billion and particulates and various dispersion equations and models. And she would whip around and she'd put one of us on the spot and ask us, what are the total tons of carbon emitted? And then she'd whip around, erase the whole board, and start again. And I quickly found myself going, whoa, I'm scared. And she was so intimidating. And I was just, sweating bullets. And anyway, so I found my way to remedial tutoring, where a very nice, approachable TA started answering my questions. And I studied hard, and I'm very proud to say I aced her midterm. And then I aced her class, and that is what gave me the courage to go knock on Ruth Weiner's door. And finally, to my great surprise, I discovered a real human being there. And Ruth became a strong advocate for me, and I began to tell her my dream of going to law school. And when she found that out, she said, "Well, geez, Robbie, I think you should apply for this internship, and I'm going to recommend you for it." And that internship is what eventually led to my very first job out of college. And that first job out of college is what sent me to law school. And law school is what sent me to a major Seattle law firm. And let me tell you, when I landed at that law firm, I felt a very long ways from Huxley College, because that place was a quintessential old boys club. Everybody was stodgy. All the named partners were old white men, many, many years older than me, mostly very, very, very conservative. They wore suits and coats and ties and everything. None of this dancing stuff. None. And it just so happened that the most intimidating of all these old guys was a little guy named Pinky. And I know Pinky doesn't sound very intimidating, but let me tell you, this man was a pistol. And he would march down those hallways at 7 a.m., belting out orders to all of us young associates. Mike, go draft a subpoena ducis tecum, and Roberta, where is that motion to appoint a guardian ad litem, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And very quickly, I realized that he thought I was the dumbest thing on the planet. He actually referred to grown women as little girls, and I knew he kind of had it out for me, and I just proceeded to get dumber and dumber and dumber. Every time he yelled at me, I think I lost about, 1 million brain cells or something, and I started making some really dumb mistakes that were so embarrassing, I still have nightmares about them, and I can hardly even tell you about them. But right about that time, 2 really important things happened in my career. So graduates, I want you to pay attention now, real close, okay? One thing that happened was a really approachable legal secretary took me aside after I'd just gotten yelled at by Pinky, and she said to me, Roberta, she pointed the opposite way down the hallway, away from Pinky's office and in a whole other direction, and she said, you should go knock on that door. He's kind of nice. And I looked down that hall, and here's what I saw. I saw clouds and clouds of really stinky cigar smoke billowing out the doors, okay? And inside, I heard this extremely gruff, grovelly old man's voice, and he was apparently talking to some Republican senator. Yes, the man was a diehard Republican. And he was literally 40 years older than me. His name was Bert. And I did what this legal secretary told me to do. I knocked on Bert's door, and I started getting to know him. And what I found was a very, very patient man, a very calm man, a very understanding man, a man who I could ask any dumb question in the world of, and he wouldn't humiliate me. And eventually, I became friends with this man. He would teach me how to deal with difficult opposing counsel. He would teach me how to navigate my way through a 5-fork dinner at the Rainier Club. And I taught him how to order a newfangled thing called a latte. And gradually, I realized that this man had this incredible ability, despite the fact that he was this cigar-smoking, diehard old Republican. He had this incredible ability to reach across every single divide that usually separates people. That kid wants their sex questions answered, okay? Right now. So, anyway. Anyway, back to Bert. This is really important. So, he could befriend anybody. It didn't matter what race, what age, what persuasion, what religion, what class, rich or poor, didn't matter. Bert had friends all over the place, and he really listened. And I learned so much from that. He made me a better lawyer. Now, of course, while all this lovely mentoring was going on, Pinky was still out to get me. I knew this because one day he stormed into my office and he slapped a file on my desk and he said, Roberta, this is a dog of a case, but I promised this young woman's father that we would at least investigate it. He was kind of hoping to get business from this father. And so I said, well, I knew that whenever you get dumped with what a partner calls a dog of a case, that means you're getting fired next week, okay? That's usually what that means. So I said, well, gee, Pinky, what's the case about? And he got beet red all of a sudden, and he got all flustered, and then he turned and he left, and he never answered that question. So I started investigating, and I kept investigating, and I started talking to this young woman, and then I started really investigating, and I went to 3 different states, And the long and short of it is, I was able to uncover the truth of a really awful situation in which a pedophile had been sexually exploiting a large number of young women students in a faith-based school, and he had covered it all up by earning the trusts of these parents in this very, very insular faith. And I'm very proud to say I was able to turn that dog of a case into a major landmark decision that brought real justice to this young woman and to other young women who had been harmed. And at the end, even Pinky was very, very, very proud. And one of the things it taught all of us, including me, was that, gee, maybe the fact that I'm a female is not such a liability. Maybe it's actually an asset. And it certainly was in that case. And that case was what kind of launched my career trajectory. I went from pariah to a rising star under a very challenging set of circumstances at a major law firm. And, so like my ego was really growing at this point. I knew I was on track to make partner. I did make partner. And everything was going swimmingly. I met and married a wonderful man who I'm married to today. And just as our honeymoon was ending, well, it got ended for us very abruptly, and I was diagnosed with a very acute form of cancer. And I was told by doctors that I had very slim odds of survival, and it was really quite a shock, because I was a young, very healthy person. I was 31 years old, and about the last person you'd think would get a life-threatening disease. Well, the long and short of it is, Bert came to visit me every time I wanted a supportive ear in the hospital, and he helped me psych up for this battle, too. And I began to do a very Bert-like thing. I began to row my IV stand up and down the halls of the cancer ward. I was bald. I lived in this hospital for nearly 2 years of my life. And I would get to know the various cancer patients that were there, and I began to realize we all had one thing in common, and that was we were all getting screwed by our insurance companies, every single one of us. And so I kind of made a vow to myself. I said, if I live through this, I am going to use whatever talent I have to try to advocate for health as a basic human right in this country, because that's what it ought to be. And I'm proud to say that we've made a great achievement. On January 1st of this year, we finally ended that terrible practice of insurance companies being able to just dump their bad risk. So that experience, that cancer experience, actually led me on a whole different career path. Through that experience, I began meeting others who were working to advance healthcare as a human right, and I started doing some pro bono work on days that I was well enough to actually do work. And I met a young woman who worked for Planned Parenthood, and one day she came up to me and she said, "Geez, Roberta, I understand you've practiced sex law." And I said, "Well, yeah, how'd you hear?" And she said, "Well, I have a question for you. How is it that here in this country, we have all these very generous health insurance companies that cover every single prescription, every kind of preventive care imaginable, but they won't cover something every single young woman needs, which is contraception?" And I said, "Well, geez, I don't know. Why would that be?" So we started investigating, and sure enough, that's what led to my job at Planned Parenthood and the victories we've been able to bring to women in this country. And that is then what led to my international work as well, in the realm of trying to advance women, advance their ability to get an education, their economic opportunities, and their health opportunities. And so here we are. You might be asking, well, what does this have to do? What does my career in sex law have to do with Huxley? Well, here's the answer. First of all, there's no question in my mind that the fact that Huxley trained me to think in a very interdisciplinary way is a huge reason for any success I've ever had in my law practice. I became very adept at handling scientific and public health information, no problem. And if you think about it, the concept of health as a human right is really the same concept as every single person, no matter how rich or poor or where they live on this planet, has a basic human right to breathe clean air and to drink clean water, right? And even more to the point, even more to the Huxley point, the question of whether women will win the struggle to control our own bodies and decide our own important life decisions plays a huge, enormous role in the question of whether humankind will be able to leave a healthy and sustainable planet to our children and all future generations. Those two are inextricably linked. And just for example, without birth control, and I'm talking simple things like condoms, IUDs, and birth control pills, without those very basic things that many of us take for granted, the average woman would be pregnant about 12 to 15 times in her life. 12 to 15. And even though we take those things for granted, the truth of the matter is there's over 250 million young women in this world who would very much like to prevent pregnancy, but they don't have access to those very basic healthcare needs. Some of them are actually here in this country. And what we know today, after all these years of work in this field, is that when we meet those needs, when we actually meet women's healthcare needs, we save lives and we improve the health of women and children dramatically. And we also know that it's very inexpensive to do that. It's very inexpensive. And the other thing we know is that when we meet those needs, we will accomplish an incredible reduction of carbon emissions. In fact, meeting women's needs for contraception will equate to the equivalent of ending all deforestation on Earth. And that's quite something. But paradoxically, we also live in a world where, though people are getting more and more aware of carbon footprints, and little girls can grow up to be doctors and lawyers and professors and even astronauts, women are still very, very, very much struggling just for basic birth control. In fact, within the next 2 weeks, the United States Supreme Court will hand down a decision, an ominous decision in an ominous case that I fear may begin to restrict those rights quite dramatically for women here. I'll be writing about that further in my blog, One Mom's Career in Sex Law. You can find it on Moms Rising. But it all boils down to my mantra, which is this: planning one's family should be absolutely free, but polluting our planet should come with a real price tag. And that is about as Huxley as it gets. So, okay, so folks, that will conclude the PG-13 portion of this speech. And now I'm going to turn to my basic pearls of wisdom for all you graduates. First of all, if life hands you a big lemon, like say cancer or a pinky or whatever, try to find a focus for your anxiety and your anger and your frustration, and try to find a focus that has a chance of being effective. And then take some words from my oncologist, that's the cancer doctor who saved my life. He said, Roberta, you gotta train for a marathon. You're not running a sprint here. To have patience and perseverance, because real solutions do not come overnight. They take patience and perseverance. And then get ready. You're going to face your Ruths and you're going to face your Pinkies. It's inevitable. The world is a stressful place, but the Ruths and the Pinkies will definitely toughen you up for the challenges ahead. And then if they make you too anxious, just know one thing. You better start looking for your Berts right away, because you're going to need to find your Berts. And you'll be surprised that you're going to be able to find some Berts in some very strange and unusual places. So keep your minds open to that. In fact, research now validates Burton C. Waldo's basic formula for success, which is that when work groups contain both men and women and people from diverse backgrounds, those are the work groups that are most successful and most likely to succeed at solving some of our most difficult and intractable problems. So he's totally validated in his basic philosophy. May his soul rest in peace. So, while we're on the subject of talking about being open-minded and reaching across those divides and reaching across the silos that tend to separate people as they get on in their professions and things like that, I want to leave you with one more little bit of some very, very good news that I think portends very well for your future graduates. And here's what it is. Just a few days ago, I had the privilege of attending some focus groups in which a fairly significant-sized group of Northwestern women gathered to talk very, very candidly about their views about climate change. And one entire group was nothing but Republican women. And I have good news. There was not a single climate denier in that group. These were all women voters. And they were all very, very, very proud of our record here in the Pacific Northwest of recycling. A lot of them were bragging about all the composting they do. Can you imagine? Republicans composting. And best of all, many of them were really talking with great respect about the need to reduce their carbon footprints and their efforts to do so. They were being genuine about it. So that is a real opportunity, and it portends well, because here on the West Coast, we do have the capacity and the potential to really forge some changes in terms of putting a price on carbon pollution. And those changes and efforts will be coming soon. So by all means, class of 2014, I urge you to get out there, find your Berts, reach across those boundaries and barriers, and become the Berts of the future. Thank you.
Now we come to the presentation of trees. Before we begin, I want to put one caveat on this. These trees, you're going to receive a Douglas fir. These trees are in no way a metaphor for your life. Some of these trees may not survive. They may enter the circle of life sooner rather than later. There's no resemblance to what your future looks like. You do not have to suffer the pain of guilt. Come back and tell me, my tree died. No, it's okay. Sadly, this brings us toward the end. I had some notes about Douglas firs, so you should be able to tell me some things. What's the scientific name for Douglas fir? Thank you very much. What are some characteristics of Douglas firs? Resilient, yes. Did I hear resilient? Very productive, drought resistant, resistant to cold. What do they do in terms when they're hit with fire? They live. When they're hit with ice, they live. They do all these things. So you have this Douglas fir. It's going to survive the trip in your back seat to wherever it's going to go. That would not be my yard, but your parents' yard would be a good spot, I think. It will not survive an entire summer in your back seat, so keep that in mind. So, with that, totally lost my notes, but we need some closing remarks, I think. It's always tough because I get a little verklempt. But anyway, we are proud of you. You came here by design. You challenged us. I think we challenged you. You met those challenges. You persevered. You're tenacious. You're idealistic. You're hopeful, optimistic, and you are ours. So you're part of our community. So go forth. And I think do we have some refreshments outside? Yes, we have some refreshments outside. So you can loiter outside, enjoy a little bit of, hopefully it's not raining, but enjoy the weather, and thank you very much. Class of 2014.